The time is just gone 15 minutes past 9 a.m. as we continue with the broadcast this morning, news and views in the company of our Salam Media listeners, our viewers on the various platforms, and also our One Nation 88.9 FM listeners who have joined us out of Polokwane. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa, clearly the spotlight, the radar is on the president of the country, and the opposition political parties have issued a release, and this was on the 3rd of August, and this includes the Democratic Alliance, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the Inkatha Freedom Party, the National Freedom Party, the African Transformation Movement, the United Democratic Movement, the African Christian Democratic Party, and these are all parties that are represented in South Africa's National Assembly. And just to the primary agenda and the focus of this meeting was to consolidate and strengthen opposition parties, more importantly, to hold the executive and President Cyril Ramaphosa accountable. We joined by the DA National Spokesperson this morning, Siviwe Gwarube. Siviwe, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Yes, just looking at this press release, holding the executive and President Cyril Ramaphosa accountable, especially in the light of the serious allegations he faces regarding Palapala and violation of the Constitution.
Yes. Look, I mean, the intention, as a press statement says, the intention of the meeting was for opposition parties that are represented in Parliament to meet, not just really about the issues or the allegations facing the president, but to meet and also, reaffirm that when we've got a strong opposition in Parliament, when Parliament works the way that it should, then South Africa is in a better position. And while we differ on ideology, we differ on strategies of how to get the country working again, but the one thing that we were united, and it was in unanimity in the meeting, was that we need to have a stronger opposition, and we need to make sure that matters of national importance are discussed and resolved in Parliament. And then chief among that was the issue that of the allegations facing the president. It was discussed that it is quite important that Parliament does in fact concern itself with the allegations that are facing the president. We've learned a very harsh lesson over the years. Through state capture, Parliament was not painted in the most glorious light. When we were told that Parliament basically aided and abetted state capture by its inaction. So we can't do the same, and we cannot simply not learn our lessons. And so the matter of the allegations facing the president needs to be discussed in Parliament, and there needs to be an investigation that is parliamentary led.
Yes, and also, Sibiwe, when one looks at parliamentary process, and this appears from this release to be the gripe of the opposition parties, looking at the National Assembly, looking at the Speaker of Parliament as well, because these are critical issues, these are important issues, like the one holding the president accountable. And there are concerns as far as the Speaker of the National Assembly and how this matter is being handled, and how the opposition, obviously is being viewed in the National Assembly.
Hmm. No, look, there definitely is a wide held view that there is a problem with in the way that the speaker has been handling the matter. As you would have seen, she had received a request by the ATM to institute a Section 89 inquiry, which for the people at home is an inquiry that looks into the fitness of the president to hold office. Regardless of what one may think of that move, the reality is that the speaker must, wherever it comes from, consider these things that are coming from opposition parties, and she needs to give sufficient reasons why they are not agreed to. The reality is that Parliament is not an institution for politicians. Parliament is there to essentially for us to be able to represent the people of South Africa who sent us there. And so it is important that we remember that. And as politicians who are there, it is important to remember that that institution is for the business of the people and not just simply for politicians.
Also, Siviwe, what the statement or the press release talks about is opposition parties initiating and participating in broader consultations with civil society organizations, other NPOs, trade unions, and other bodies to formulate a common approach in responding to holding the executive and the president accountable.
Yes, yes, of course, and again, it speaks to my point here about the fact that the role of Parliament really is to really address some of the issues facing South Africans, and ultimately, there's no one way of fixing the problems in South Africa, and so reaching out to civil society organizations, religious bodies, and saying let's all be united in our quest to save South Africa. Really, it is quite important, and so that was also part of the discussions that were made. That we've got to have all the pressure points on press so that we can make sure that we get to the bottom of this. And if there are people that need to be held accountable, that they need to be held accountable. The reality is that here there are allegations of abuse of state institutions with this matter. There are allegations of, kidnapping of people, people being tortured. There's a number of things here that need to be clarified, especially as it pertains to the number one citizen of the country.
Yes, and also one area of concern is, and we've seen a lot of that happening of late, is opposition parties resorting to the legal system, to the court, to the judiciary, to highlight and to raise some of these issues. And we've seen so much happening in the past where a lot of these matters are actually going to the court, right up to the constitutional court.
Yeah, and I mean, and that is one of the very good things about the fact that about an independent judiciary, of course, because it then means that we are able to turn to the court when other institutions are failing us. But ultimately, and the courts have said this in the past, that it's quite important that the various institutions or the various arms of state need to be able to resolve their own issues because ultimately they don't want to traverse ground that is not theirs, or at least they don't want to traverse issues that are not within their ambit to deal with. And so, yes, while we can always resort to the court, but we should be able to deal with these things in the institution that they're meant to be in. And so we have got to exhaust all the processes here in Parliament because, of course, the drafters of the rules of Parliament really made the institution one that can be incredibly useful in holding government to account. So there are mechanisms in the institution to do so. And so, in my view, we've got to exhaust all of those before we can turn to the courts. But of course, the courts are there as a safeguard for our constitution. And so it is really great that in our constitutional democracy, we still have a vibrant and independent judiciary.
And just in terms of exhausting the options, one of those options would that be a vote of no confidence?
Look, I mean that is something that was definitely discussed. I mean there has not been a unanimous decision about that and whether or not that will be moved by the political parties. And so while that was discussed, political parties will need to routinely go back to the drawing board to figure that out.
Yes, and as you mentioned earlier, despite the differences in ideologies, as far as the various political parties are concerned, this is a matter of common interest to all opposition parties, and
Mm.
also I would say to a larger society as well, CBA, because society in general has got a huge interest in this particular matter, and more importantly, for a very, very long time, we've found that the powers that be, those that have made certain decisions, they have, or those that have not even delivered, whether we're talking about state-owned institutions, and we know the ESCOM debacle, and there's just so much happening in this country. And at the end of the day, we find that there is a total lack of accountability.
And of course, and that's why it is my view that that which is why this is quite important, a important discussion. That yes, there are times where opposition parties have to put their differences aside, and they have to essentially, for the good of the republic, put their political differences aside and unite, at least insofar as getting work done in Parliament. That's the one thing. And then the other matter is that yes, you are absolutely right. This is a matter that concerns many South Africans, and so that's why it is my view that Parliament should the business of Parliament should be the business of the people.
Exactly. And just finally, looking at developments and how the political landscape or the political dynamics have actually been changing and evolving over a period of time. And we've seen with the results of the local government elections, no outright majority. We've got hung municipalities, hung councils, and this could easily happen comes the next national elections. So this is absolutely important. This is critical when one talks about political parties. We know the deal that was struck in Nelson Mandela Bay, and this is a type of politics that I think as South Africans are going to be looking at. That's how or what we're going to be faced with going ahead into the future, because we know that we don't have the situation where the ANC can now claim to have an outright majority, and things obviously will change a lot comes the next national elections.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, I think it presents a great opportunity for institutions like Parliament, if that happens, where we move towards where there is no outright majority. Because I think then we're going to see that when there's not a dominant organization that can railroad certain things through Parliament by a majority vote, then I think political parties will be more amenable to reaching across the aisle, to being able to reach consensus. And I think people generally will understand that South Africans are holding them to account. And we can really hope that as we head towards 2024, South Africans can realize that there is a direct correlation between how you vote and how you live. And so I think once that realization happens, I think we're not going to see outright majorities in post 2024. And I think it can only but mature our democracy for the better.
Exactly, and I believe that opposition parties will hold a follow-up meeting on Wednesday, the 10th of August, to finalize this
Yes.
common approach. So hopefully, we will be watching that space, and we will be doing a follow-up interview when that follow-up meeting takes place and a decision is reached. But for now, Sibiwe, thank you very much for your time with us here on Asala Media and for unpacking what you have. Please take care.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Siviwe Gwarube joining us this morning, the DA National Spokesperson, and this comes against the background of the statement of opposition political parties who are represented in the National Assembly, calling for President Cyril Ramaphosa and the executive to be held accountable. The time is just heading towards 9:30. We come back, we will be focusing on Women's Month, and this morning we will be talking with Sheikha Kausar.